All right, before we start the video, I know I'm late. I had school today, so this is going to be like released at the heat death of the universe. It's going to be super, super late. So sorry. That aside, I will be doing a breakdown, and I also have seen the trailer before, so I'll try to reflect and go back over the trailer. And on the second viewing, I want to talk about kind of what I disagree with the culture more, since I feel like my previous trailers coverage have really focused on my first impressions. So I just want to take a more refined view at the culture and kind of just reflect on what other people have been saying about the culture on the Discord and give you my own personal opinions. I do love the art though.
In bad shape at the beginning of the 19th century, the Ethiopian imperial authority benefited from the reigns of great rulers in the second half of the century, which allowed a significant territorial expansion. The vast process of modernization of imperial institutions particularly affected the army. The Ethiopian emperors succeeded at the end of the century in mobilizing large, well-trained and well-equipped troops.
I love this guy's accent.
The increase in the empire's military capacities was the basis of its resounding military successes.
All right, let's take a quick peek at the abilities. So first of all, actually, before we even begin talking about their abilities, let's talk about the affinity. People have said here and there that they don't like the affinity system at all, and I kind of agree and disagree. I'd like if you could pick your own affinities before even having them pre-assigned to certain cultures, like the British being expansionist and the Austro-Hungarians being aesthete and all that jazz. But that's not really what the topic of this video is about. But I do want to reflect on that and say that militarist culture, I just feel like it has such an awkward positioning, because as a militarist, you're supposed to conquer. But when you're a defensive culture, like the devs have literally said, that the Ethiopians are supposed to be a defensive militarist, it's kind of a big contradiction, because you're supposed to go out and conquer. You don't really do anything with military units in peacetime aside from like establishing a presence and maybe killing a few barbarians here and there. So I don't really think being a defensive militarist, especially in the third to last era, or the second to last era, because these guys are all the way in the industrial era, I don't think it's a really good thing. And their abilities are kind of lackluster. They're really strong early on, but later on in the industrial era and later, it's just kind of lackluster to immediately raise troops, because opponents are usually set up by then. So the Amba specifically, I love how it's a mountain fort, but the plus 10 district fortification and plus 5 stability and plus 1 combat strength just feels really lackluster for the industrial era. And this is kind of a theme I feel that the Humankind devs have not yet adapted to, in that they are kind of planning cultures around later eras, and they don't really know where to go with them, because they just have these set bonuses. So I'd really love to see if these actually scaled, or at least you could do something with fortifications. This plus 5 science on garrison is really nice, but it's just really lackluster for the industrial era. So I just, again, like to see better scaling from the devs. I feel like the first 3 cultures were really solid, but as we get on to like the Maasai and the Ethiopians, I feel like they're slowly but surely losing their luster and shine. So kind of getting back into a few of the bad habits, like poor scaling and just being very straightforward and lacking nuance, which I was hoping they'd rectify, and they seem to have been rectifying with the first 3 cultures. So I hope I'm not going on too much of a tangent, but that's just kind of been my initial reaction to how the devs have been playing around with different affinities and some of the issues we seem to be having with later cultures. Who knows? The Ethiopians may be amazing for conquest victories, but I just have a few gripes with them. I just want to get out.
Guaranteed its independence. The legacy traits, military modernization,
I do like the outfit, though.
reflect how well they modernized their army during that time.
In the defense of their territories against foreign appetites, the emperors could rely on the specificity of the Ethiopian massif. By taking advantage of the
And that is a nice
plateaus,
design. The
difficult
art team
to
is
access
always
and often
consistent.
fortified, they recorded brilliant military victories, as on the slopes of the Amba Alagi in 1895.
Amba will provide the player the perfect defense on the mountain areas. Their zone of control effects will slow the enemies, which will give you some time to plan your strategy.
See, this is another gripe I have. Like, I'm hitting on this a lot, but if you are in the ancient to classical era, sure, fine. I can see needing to have a good fortification sense if you didn't get the right culture you want and your enemies are really aggressive and you need some protection. Okay, sure. And maybe the influence is really nice for a little bit of expansion here and there, like they wanted to reflect with the Ethiopians. But I mean, in the industrial era, you are usually already set up. You want to get that science, kind of like with what the French have, and rapidly start pushing out those techs like crazy. You really don't have time to have these weird restrictions with like mountain placements and whatever. And it's just really situational, and it doesn't help that it's a defensive militarist, which is like one of the most awkward kind of positionings for that affinity.
Strategy.
The accounts of Western travelers describing them as ruthless warriors.
It's just I don't really
deeply marked
see
the
many
European
situations where I would use
imaginations
the
of
Amba
19th century.
or need the
Also,
Ethiopians for that
their
matter.
eruption on the battlefields often had a great effect on enemies.
Even if they are not known from being numerous troops, the Oromo cavalry is an
All right,
experienced
so let's take a look at the Oromo. This is one of the facets of this culture I did not have too much time to look over. They have experience, so bonus combat strength from veterancy level, so they'll pack quite a punch. And they're also gunners, so they are ranged cavalry, and they should do quite a bit of damage. You really want to just, I guess, upgrade these guys from previous units, so you're capitalizing on that veterancy bonus. And they should pack a punch. This is one of the things where you really need to see them kind of in action to really get a gauge of how powerful they are in relation to other units in the meta.
regiment that fought many battles. It will be reflected on getting double strength from their veterancy level.
So yeah, they're
In
quite strong.
Humankind, there are millions of culture combinations
bad.
possible. Each one has unique gameplay and a rich story, like the Ethiopians. We can't wait to see how far you will push Humankind.
All right, so I hope it wasn't too much of a Debbie Downer for this culture in particular. I did like the first three cultures. The Maasai, not so much, and definitely not the Ethiopians, while they do have some nice bonuses present. So I hope I didn't ruin the Africa culture pack for you guys. I really have high hopes for the Nigerians. They are a contemporary agrarian culture, so we'll see how they kind of fit into the grand scheme of things. But before I go, I will recommend checking out my other culture videos on the past 4 cultures. And I also recommend checking out some of my other videos on the channel if you're interested in things like Civ 6 and other 4X strategy games like Stellaris. I do a ton of shorts and memes relating to that. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for checking out the channel and this culture reveal. Again, sorry that it's so late, but if you like the video, leave a like. That helps support the channel and get my videos out there. And thank you again for 800 subscribers, guys. I really appreciate the support. So thank you guys so much. I won't drag this out for too long. But again, thank you guys for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. And I hope to get to see you guys tomorrow. And hopefully the video is not as late. All right. Love you guys. See ya.